Welcome back to Benny's Custom Works, proudly supported by Valvoline and Sparesbox. Don't forget Benny 5 on checkout. This week, we're back on the Pajero Mini. We've been mucking around with the flares and we've also had a delivery from Japan. So today I want to test fit all of the flares before we send them to paint. So then that way I can drill any holes I need to drill before we get them painted. Also, if there's any amendments or trimming, that's all done before they're painted. I highly recommend this process for any fiberglass part you get, because you don't want to be putting something on straight out of the box that's already been painted and then having to cut or trim or modify it, because then you're just going to have to paint it again. We're also going to be doing door trims. We've got a new tail light, a new left-hand mirror. We've also got a driver's side seat belt, because the driver's side belt in this has just frayed in the last week or so. So need to fix that pretty much straight away. A lot of these parts, obviously, when you start buying weird imported cars that are over 25 years old, it's hard to get bits in the country that you're in. But that being said, there's still tons of these things being parted out on Yahoo. So fortunately, I picked up all sorts of bits for it. We've also got some other parts coming in the next batch of stuff. So yeah, we're going to be doing that in a separate video later on. But yeah, today we're going to be doing a heap of stuff, and hopefully by the end of it, it'll be even better and more fun to drive, hopefully. And things will work properly. And I won't have this stupid cartoon mirror that you can't even look out of properly, because the glass got broken on the boat. No one told me, and then it turned up with a smashed mirror. So then I had to order a mirror. More things getting broken on boats and on cars that always happen, that no one ever takes responsibility for. I'll definitely make another piece. I don't know if I'll fiberglass it, but I reckon there's supposed to be a tab that goes under there and mount on this same bit as the bumper bar, because there is definitely a tab in there. Like, it looks like there's a provision, because this clearly mounts under the guard, not on it. Like with the shape of the rest of it, that's supposed to tuck under, but still it fits pretty neat, eh? Yeah, because that'll tie in there. As far as drill onto the body, like these all just mount with brackets, but then the rear ones we've got to drill in.
Love the technique.
3 hands, bro. Trade secret. Same thing, once I got those brackets, just pull that neat on the body. Might just be a bit of guard liner trimming potentially. It's just a bit more snug than the other one. Oh, screws, what is that? Yucky. You can understand putting this flare on now why some of these holes actually blew out, because realistically there's probably about 10 mil missing off that inner edge on where it should be. For whatever reason, I don't know if the manufacturer's made it short or the previous owner cut these too thin or what, but yeah, it's not great. We'll make it work, but it may just mean we'll have to drill holes further back and potentially glue. It may just mean gluing this section rather than riveting it. Not super keen to glue them on, but I also don't want them to fall off, so I probably will just glue kind of from there to there, and then the rest will just rivet. So we're going to use some Clecos basically to mock up where the rivets are going to go. We're going to use 1/8 rivets, so we'll drill a 1/8 hole, and that's the same size that Clecos use as well. So that'll mean that we can put it back in the correct spot and fit it all up, and it'll fit forever, hopefully. They must just get like screwed onto the inner guard or something. That one only looks weird because the bumper bars are the wrong shape. Like, because that's damaged, it's actually pushed that in and changed this angle. So it's got a weird gap there. But once the replacement one comes, that'll be heaps better. So I won't bother trying to fit these to this bumper, because we're just going to take them off, and especially if I'm going to glue it to this corner piece. So I think I'll Sikaflex that on. That sounds beautiful. Thanks for that. That was mad. got all of our fiberglass flare kit fitted up. It actually fits surprisingly well. Unfortunately, this left-hand rear one has been repaired before, so it doesn't fit as well as the other three. However, it's still not too bad, so I'm not particularly fussed with it. We've got the rears mounted to the vehicle temporarily using Clecos. They're like almost a reusable rivet. They only require a 1/8 hole, which is quite small. And I will just use aluminium rivets to rivet these back on that are also 1/8, so that'll get that sorted. The fronts are going to use the brackets that we don't have yet. We need to get those made, so that'll tie that all pretty well together. The bar extensions I am going to run. I wasn't sure at the beginning if we were going to use them or not, but yeah, they actually look better with them on than without. So this left-hand rear one I do need to do a little bit more work to, so I will get that repair done and basically send these off for paint. I do also have another front bar which is still in transit, so once that gets here, I'll actually paint or get the flares and the front bar painted at the same time, because that right-hand front corner is damaged. So yeah, I want to just basically do one lot of painting, not have to do it all over again. So tidy it up and get it all back together. Now we're going to pull it all off. But there are some indicators now they've made that are non-polarity sensitive, which I have no idea how they've managed to do that, because you know what the D in LED is? Diode, which means current will only pass one way through it. Now I know it's only a pretty minor thing, but the taillight lens has actually been broken on this car since I got it. So being that the parts for this car are so cheap, that taillight was literally $20. So yeah, I figured if I'm gonna pack a box full of Pajero parts, I may as well throw a taillight in. So yeah, that one will go in the bin, but chucked a new one in. And it actually came with a right-hand one as well. So I do have a right-hand spare one. So hopefully I don't need any taillights, because normally that's gonna mean panel damage as well. So yeah, we're just gonna chuck this sucker in and keep on going. The main reason why we're changing these mirrors, obviously, as I've mentioned, is because the passenger side one has a plastic mirror lens in it. It's like a friggin' haunted house. One of those novelty mirrors at a carnival. The reason for that is the mirror lens got broken on the boat or in transit. The reason I know that's why it got broken, or when it got broken, is because whoever broke it actually put the pieces of glass inside the car. No idea why, but I needed a passenger mirror for registration in Australia, and fortunately you can buy this plastic mirror lens and cut it to size. Now, it was always going to be a temporary fix. I didn't want to run this thing forever because it's pretty useless. I mean, you can see cars in it, but you can't really gauge any distance or anything. So yeah, got another mirror, same thing. This was like $40. So trying to buy a genuine mirror lens through Mitsubishi, apart from it actually no longer being available, I think the price they quoted was like $300 if they could get one. So yeah, it was much easier to just buy a whole replacement mirror off Yahoo, ship it here, and I think by the time I got it here, it was about $85. So definitely worth looking at. Don't break the mirror. Or if you're from America, it's a mirror. Now I'm going to change these switches because I know these ones work. So this is the original door card that we've just pulled out of the Pajero Mini, and as you can see, the plastic's absolutely cooked. So unfortunately, it's quite common, especially for Mitsubishi K cars in the 90s, for these door cards to break down. I would hazard a guess to say that this thing probably sat in direct sunlight for some time, most likely parked up in a field before it went through the auctions. This door card, however, is much nicer. The cloth still come loose a little bit. We'll probably fix that later, but for now at least it gets a nice plastic door card in there. And yeah, we'll maybe fix that, maybe we won't. But it's heaps nicer than dead plastic. And these are actually quite hard to find in good condition, so I was pretty happy that I scored them. These were probably the most expensive part I've actually bought for this car so far. I think the door cards were about $200, which to me is still pretty cheap considering just how much nicer the interior is by not having this chalky flogged plastic, so pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to swap the switch over because I don't know if this one works or not. It's a golf ball. When you're replacing or installing seatbelts in a vehicle, it's a really good idea to mount the inertia reel first. The reason for that is they're actually angle sensitive. So if you try and mount it up on the top of the B pillar first and then wind it out to mount it to the lower point, you're going to struggle, or you may struggle, getting that angle correct, ensuring that the belt comes out. Whereas if you put it in the installed position first, there's no issues with just pulling the belt out and getting it installed. And we're done. Another episode on the Paj in the bag. Pretty happy with how this has actually come out. It's been a bit of fun actually sort of sourcing all these parts and putting bits and pieces back together, both from obviously a restoring aspect, for want of a better term, and the modifications of some of the stuff that's going on. Speaking of modifications, you may or may not have noticed, depending on the angle of how we've seen this today, that the lift kit is gone. Unfortunately, at full travel in the front, we're actually getting really bad CV bind, so that is gone. I worked out that was about 80 mil lift just in suspension alone, so the CVs really weren't happy. I've currently got completely standard suspension in this. However, I do have a set of 30 mil raised springs that are going to come from Japan. Oddly enough, also, I did work out the right hand front is 20 mil lower than the left hand front. So there's obviously some weirdness going on with the springs there, either in the front or the rear springs, because it is worth thinking about too that potentially the rear spring height is actually what's pushing more load on that front corner. Now, I don't think it is that, because it is quite a large difference being 20 mil left to right. That rear spring would have to be so far out. However, if you're playing around with your car, it is worth thinking that it's not always actually the corner you're working on is the result of the ride height issue you're chasing. But I guess that's another story for another day. Yeah, thanks to you guys for following along the project. There's plenty more Pajero Mini coming. The flares are going to go for paint with the replacement front bumper, which is actually a later model front bumper. I haven't mentioned that yet, but we are going to change the front of it a little bit. Obviously, the Series 1 front end and grille is going to stay. However, we're going to go for the later H58A front bar. We're going to delete these fog lights behind me because the later one does actually have fog lights in the front bar, so that'll be pretty cool. A little bit more of a smoother, streamlined look for the front without losing the Series 1 front styling. So pretty keen to get that in. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.